Tiffany Spann-Wilder is an attorney, a North Charleston resident, a former Charleston County magistrate judge, and a former North Charleston municipal judge. And oh, by the way, she's a former television judge who's now a candidate for South Carolina House District 109 after Deon Tedder was elected state senator for District 42. I speak exclusively, Tiffany, for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Tiffany Spann-Wilder, Esquire. Welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you, Quintin. It is an honor to be here. Never thought I'd be sitting in this seat.
Well, I went back in my email from 2012 when I first started Quintin's Close-Ups. So that was 11 years ago. It'll be 12 years in 2024. But you were one of the first people that I wanted to interview when I first started Quintin's Close-Ups. I had a list. It was Thomas Dixon. It was Sam Hart. It was obviously Thaddeus Bell, and then it was you. Most of them I got, except for Thaddeus Bell. I'm working on that. But it's good to have you here on Quintin's Close-Ups now because you have some big news. So tell me about it.
Well, today I filed to officially be a candidate for the South Carolina House of Representatives, District 109.
Judge, I know that obviously you are an attorney, you're a former Charleston County magistrate judge, a former North Charleston municipal judge, a former TV judge, as we all knew.
Yes.
You're also a wife, a mom, and an entrepreneur. So why this? Why now?
Quintin, I think as we look at our rotations around the sun and we look back at the things that we have done, wish we had done, or aspire to, I think this level of public service is probably one of those things that was hanging out there that I just never jumped into. I think going into law school for a lot of us, we have these really lofty goals of being in the political arena, making these big, impactful changes, and then you start in a career path and you make wins and changes for people every day, just one person at a time. And I think I've come to that place in my life, that corner where I feel like I have some more to give and to do it in a larger scale. Most pointedly, from the bench, it's a hard space to work out of sometimes because it's neutrality. It is just neutral. There are things that you know that might be of benefit to someone, but that's not my job to be an advocate for them there. It is my job to exact the law. And so I have decided, with this seat coming open for a second time in about 3 years, that God's trying to tell me something. It is time to step out on that and make a bigger impact for my community. I was born here. It's time to do something more for the people, to offer myself up to them for that if they'll have me.
So, Judge, let me ask you, obviously we know you are a household name here in the Low Country. You have a law school experience, law experience that is as well, and community experience. So with all of that, Judge, how do you actually make House District 119 competitive today so that the state of South Carolina as a whole can be better tomorrow?
109, Quintin. Don't put me in 119.
I'm sorry, 109.
I'm 109. But 109 is a gold mine. It absolutely is. We are the height of retail with the Tanger outlets. We are the height of manufacturing as far as I'm concerned, with Boeing being here. Yet we still have probably one of the highest crime rates of any North Charleston council district. We are kind of a Charles Dickens play, the best of times and the worst of times. We're some of all of that. And I've been sitting back, watching some of the dynamics, doing what I could in civic responses, in business support to nonprofits in the area, But I think I need a larger voice now. I have a big voice, never been accused of not being heard. But I think it's an opportunity now to try to make it more impactful for the masses.
So, Judge, let me ask you this. When you look at that crime rate right now for 109, how do you see it year to year?
I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am. Judge, when you look at the crime rate, how much has that increased in the past 2 years when you think of the House District 109 area?
It's not changing. On my website for this campaign, we quoted the Scout neighborhood Scout
Right.
and gave a hyperlink to it to say, because I don't want anyone to say I'm making a statement to be inflammatory and things are different. I don't want you to just believe me. I want you to go and see it for yourself. It's not changed a whole lot. We've been stagnant in that respect. Unfortunately, when I get the news break hits and I look, it's the shooting and it's on this street, and I'm going, oh, that's 109. And it doesn't matter if it's the lower end of 109 or the upper end. We continue to see a pattern of things happening. And maybe again, it could be tied to the fact that we have more commercial spaces up along Dorchester Road. So again, it makes a place for people to gather. And so that feeds into some of that. But yet still there are dynamics that are coming in from the community at large. And I won't say that all of it that is happening, that it's being perpetrated by people in 109, or that the those who are fallen victim are residents of 109, but it's happening in our land space.
Wow.
And so those are some of the things that we have to figure out.
Now, Judge, when you talk about that commercial space right there in 109, particularly Dorchester Road, where else is there commercial space right now that you're concerned about as far as the future of this district?
Well, there is the Tanger outlet area, and you see that is burgeoning.
Yes.
That is definitely happened. But the way the district is shaped, Quentin,
Yes, ma'am.
it's pretty much Dorchester Road is our main thoroughfare, and then you curve out some to the Tanger outlet area, and then we stop right at Ashley Phosphate, just a little over. If you take a right off of Dorchester Road onto Ashley Phosphate,
Sure.
you hit into that Windsor Hill community, and that's about it. Now, this is a result of redistricting. So prior to this time, 109 went further south into North Charleston, in the communities in which I grew up, Ackaby in the Union Heights area. And so those spaces have been lost, and Dorchester Terrace, those have been lost to redistricting. They're now District 111, which is represented by Representative Wendell Gilliard. And so had those still been in that space, there's certainly some things I think that could have been done, because that's where you have your next stretch of commercial spaces along Sproul Avenue and then the Azalea Drive space. So there's still a significant portion of Azalea Drive is still in 109, but by this redistricting, things have changed significantly, and Dorchester Road is our main spot. We do have some upper spaces on Azalea Drive, but that's already coveted by a lot of manufacturing. Honeywell, the buses are stationed there. More drum, and they have substantial pieces of property. I don't think they're going anywhere. And of course, we have our beloved Jenkins Institute, that is protected space, and certainly I'd want to make sure that continues to be protected space.
Now, Judge, there's a couple of things that you brought to my attention by just listening to what you're saying. So I'm just trying to follow up on what you're saying. But when it comes to redistricting, Judge, how many people have District 109 actually lost? Sorry about the plane above me. But how many residents have you lost in 109 because of this redistricting?
I don't have exact numbers for that, but I can tell you just that those communities were certainly lost, and they're significantly populated. If you think about Union Heights and how closely situated the houses are, the Accoby community, the houses are a little more spaced out, but then when you get back to the terrace,
Yes.
it's a bit tighter. I would think that we have easily lost 5 to 10,000 residents in that. However,
Yes, ma'am.
there is this shift, and it's gone into Dorchester County more,
Oh, yeah.
and moved over into that Windsor Hill community. And again, even in that community, Windsor Hill is one of the older communities in Dorchester County when it was starting to be developed, when that end of Ashley Phosphate was being developed. And so the houses, a lot of the houses there are in closer proximity because, as things seem to grow, we get more and more space
Yes.
between us. So I would not say that we have lost. It's more or less a net gain. It's just moved in a different direction, different economics as well.
Yes.
Moving into Dorchester County
Oh, yeah.
has certainly shifted, I would say, some of the impact levels on the area as well.
And Judge, I just moved up to the upper part of North Charleston, and
Okay.
I can walk out of my house on the Dorchester Road, and I can be on one side Charleston County, on the other side Dorchester County.
It is.
It's weird.
Well, I will tell you this from my experience as a past municipal judge in the city of North Charleston. The city of North Charleston is a very unique place. It sits in 3 counties. The city of North Charleston, the majority of residents are certainly in Charleston County. Then there's Dorchester County, and there's Berkeley County. So I remember times where we would have court and North Charleston did the arrest, but then there was an assist by Dorchester County, or there was Berkeley, and depending on where that all fell in, would sometimes determine sentencing spaces, all of that. But at this point, the district is still around a 30,000 population.
So with that 30,000 population, what is the typical cost of living in that area?
Well, like every place, it's expensive. We have a 14% unemployment rate based on the last statistics that I pulled from the state. Our unemployment rate in the district is 14%. So that's 56% are employed, but it would be better to be at 70% or more. And that's for those that are eligible to be employed, 16 years of age and older. So I won't say that all of that 14% are adults who are needing to care for families that are not employed. Some are likely very well students, two of whom I have in that population that aren't gainfully employed. They're catching summer employments and doing little work for me here or there. So that may be artificial in some regards, but I would suspect that the margin of error is probably not more than about 3%.
So let me ask you this then, Judge, sticking with the cost of living, and obviously you know this like everybody else in this particular area, with the growth that we're having right now, what type of jobs do the 109 need right now to keep up with that growth and keep up with cost of living, respectfully?
So, Quintin, you know the equation. This is how it's happened. The city of Charleston was redeveloped. We have our beautiful aquarium and some other properties that changed the whole dynamic of the housing community in the city of Charleston. Those folks were displaced and they shifted north. They came into, a lot came into the south end of North Charleston and have dispersed just kind of all over. And it's happening again as the south end of North Charleston shifts. People are being displaced. Maybe someone inherited a parent's home, a grandparent's home. They don't desire to live there anymore. They've been educated elsewhere, gone off. The homes fall into disrepair. It's a bust. City takes it over, knocks it down. New construction happens in a community where the grandparents may have bought the house for $20,000. Something new is being built for $220,000. So what is happening is that those who have been here initially are sometimes being outpriced for the ability to restore their homes, totally rebuild it, and even their tax numbers are changing to where they can't afford to be here. We have a lot of industry in 109. You've got the retail spaces, you've got the manufacturing spaces, but therein comes one of our other issues, Quintin. Well, a couple of our other issues, and they are the things that I call our cyclical problems. We have a jobs issue, we have a crimes issue, we have a youth issue. And the cycle is this. We have not done anything to contain and curtail the mischief of our youth. When I grew up in Accoby, I spent time in Union Heights, the Whalen, at the Janine Batten Center, Murray Hill, on the Bonds Avenue area, because that was my end of town. And those were the constructive programs that we had. I did baton twirling and cheerleading at the Janine Batten Center. I played softball in Accoby and in Murray Hill. I did double dutch in Accoby and at Brentwood Middle School, even though I wasn't a student there. Right. My friends on my team, the majority of them were there. I got to jump double dutch at Brentwood and at Garrett. And these were structured programs. Our coach would put us in her car and bring us from Garrett over to Accoby. And so we had things that were going on. Somewhere that was lost. The city of North Charleston no longer provides recreational services like that for children 13 and up. Well, when they have no place to go, they go to the streets. Then the streets teach them how to survive. Instead of teaching them how to code, how to build that computer program that they love to play, they can learn how to build apps. There's so many things. If they have an interest in aviation, all of these things are out there, but it's not being funneled to the masses. So they get involved in crime. By virtue of some of the crimes that they commit, they are now not eligible to work in certain sectors, Boeing being one of them, because you're talking about some issues of national security and safety, and they can't get a job there because they have felony convictions or some crimes that we call crimes of moral turpitude in the law. Those are the kind of crimes where they're usually financial based, bad checks, taking someone's debit card and using it. The law calls those crimes of moral turpitude because they go to the heart. The law considers it to go to the heart of who a person is, that they would knowingly take something from someone. So now you're not able to be a cashier at the Dollar Tree over in Tanger. You're not able to be a cashier over at the Chick-fil-A in Tanger because that employer has a concern that you may take from them. They're not going to, they may put you in the kitchen or in the stock room, but they're not going to put you up front in the customer service aspect. And you and I both know, Quintin, that when people are exposed and in those spaces, that's where you see the transition from cashier to team manager to store manager, because it's those interactions with the general public and people giving accolades for that. But if you don't have an opportunity to ever be seen and be on the front end of the store, that again is lost. And so you see the cycle that's happened here. No programming, we go to crime. we're not able to get some of the jobs.
How, Judge, can you work with the city of North Charleston to really reopen most of these community centers?
Quintin, I hope that this path to the State House will give me an opportunity to find and carve out some of the resources. I know the money is there. It's just got to be brought back to our community. Some of it may even be federal-based funding, but it's got to be brought back to the community. So the first thing I would do is definitely speak with Mayor-elect Burgess.
I just saw him today.
As well as the members of council, and say, we've got money here. What can you put forward? Because the city has the structure. When you go up 109, you have Councilman Hayward, who has a portion of 109 residents in his district. Right. You have Councilman Mike Brown. Right. I will call him the middle Mike Brown, because there's the older Mike, there's he, and there is his son. And so that Mike and I, we grew up together in 109 in Noah's Ark Baptist Church, sang on the youth choir together. His grandfather was our pastor. And so these are relationships that I have from way back that I believe can be cultivated to bring forth these things. So the city has these spaces. Up 109, you have the Janine Batten Center in the Wayland community. Sure. And then you go up to the Minor Crosby Community Center in the Wanda Woods community. Right. And then that kind of levels it out for a second until we get to the upper end past Cross County, where we have the community center there in the Forest Hills community. Mm-hmm. And then that kind of ends that proper as we get into the Dorchester County. We don't have any more there. But along the way, we have tons of churches as well. And so I think that in order for it to work, it has to be a collaborative effort where maybe the city can host things in the evening or in the weekend, and the church can't. But then the church can do certain things that the city can't. And so I think if we combine resources, we can make some spaces for our children. I know that Royal Baptist Church has one of the programs that Boeing has been gracious enough to help put forth with NSBE Jr., the National Society of Black Engineers. There's a program for that. But again, that's not in 109. That's on another side of North Charleston. And for some of our residents, that's going to be an issue about how they would get there. And so while there are certain things that are available in our city, because I'm not saying that there's nothing there, I'm talking about the accessibility of people to have that right in their own backyard.
And I want to let you know that I called Mike Brown, the son, Mike Brown Jr. I just had him on Quintin's Close-Ups last week.
Oh, wow.
Yes, ma'am. But what other resources do you need to close that gap when it comes to youth and jobs and community centers?
In terms of finances or infrastructure?
Yeah, well, tell me, where else can you get the infrastructure from to help close this particular gap?
One of the things that I certainly would be an advocate of as new industry comes into District 109, I know big business is always interested in a tax break. What are you going to do for me to encourage me to be there, to hire people from your community? That happens in those negotiations. And I think one part that's being left out is, what are you going to do for the community? So giving jobs to people is one thing, but that's only a certain segment of people that can work there. Everybody can't work at the same place. So what will these businesses do in terms of putting money into youth programs? And so I think that that needs to be a part of how we begin to have discussions about business coming in. Will their employees provide volunteer services in some of these spaces? If they are a unique entity, especially something that is a STEM-based corporation, will they be willing to come to the community center on the Wayland and once a week, teach kids how to do metal welding. What is it that they will provide to our community to build up the next generation? This is not going to change overnight. It's not going to change in one cycle of a House of Representative term. It is a long range thing. And I think the earliest we would see full turnover in numbers would be at least 5 years out, because you've got to start building. If you're dealing with the 13, 14-year-old now, in 5 years, they're finishing high school. And that's going to be another thing. They're going to finish high school because they are in a structure. They believe that they can do it. People are seeding them with the fact that they can do more. And those expectations are going to be in place. We're going to see the graduation rates even change with our youth, which now makes them eligible to get into some of these jobs, because some of our residents have the core issue of not having a high school diploma. I can't tell you how much I see that, or I saw that on the bench in doing sentencing or authorizing some kind of diversion program. I was always cognizant of asking people how far they had gone in school, and if they hadn't finished, did they have a GED? And I'll just tell you, it seems to be a correlation most of the time to whether or not they were working at all, or where they were working. There is a true tie to this, and we have to make sure that we do some other things to help change that around.
So, Judge, let me ask you this. How many jobs do you need currently right now for House District 109?
What do you mean?
Yeah, how many jobs, because of the growth that's happening right now, moving further out in that particular area, how many jobs will you need for the next 5 years as that area grows?
New industry coming in?
Yeah, talk to me. What type of new industry do you want in 109 to help bring those jobs to the area?
Well, we have a ton of retail, and that's good. I would like to see more entities that are truly career based. And when I say that, retail doesn't always have career based to it. You see that in upper management. And a lot of times those are the people who have actually gone to school and have a business degree. They come to Walmart in the junior management training program, and they come with the purpose of a move up. What we don't see a lot is the cashier moving all the way up to the store manager. And it's not that he or she has not acquired the skill set to do it. It's just sometimes that they don't have the education. It's a story that I hear a lot. And you've probably heard it from older folks that say, I've been on that job 20 years. And this little fella just graduated and came, and I trained him, and he knows everything about the job because I taught him. But now he's my supervisor. And it is the lambskin. It is that paper that has gotten him to that place. And so that's what we are having change over. I would love to see in 109 more jobs that are career based, where people could go build their families there. Like there is a solid base there for growth, benefits, that they don't have to hop around from job to job. They can see a path there. Yes, maybe I start here today and I'm making $17 an hour, but I know that the end game at this place, I could be at $80, and they're willing to train me. Yes, they're willing to pay for me to take classes somewhere to better myself and change my station in life. And because of that, these are the kind of employers that people will want to go to. Somebody who's willing to invest in them and their families, and not just be a here today kind of thing, gone tomorrow. So what businesses right now in the industry area of 109 that's actually investing in your constituents right now? Well, as I said, we have Boeing. And I do see them putting out programs. As I said, with the NASB Junior, they also do some work at Bose because, again, the program with NASB is not in our 109 community. It's in North Charleston at large, but they're also working with Bose. That's an organization beyond our walls. I'm not certain if you're familiar with them, Miss Joyce, that runs that and just does a marvelous job with this community. I mean, literally, they're almost right out of the door of my office, and so there is input there. But again, you got to look at who she's catering to, and it is a younger group. So she is starting at the beginning to change the mindset. But right now, we've got an issue with catching those who are in the middle passage and need structure and turning around right at this point.
And you mentioned this earlier, Judge, but what exactly is the graduation rate right now in the House District 109?
I have to look at the demographics that I have. I'm not certain if that was even captured. The rate, I can tell you what the structure is by those who do live in the district, but not necessarily the graduation rate. 22% of our residents don't have a diploma at all. 32.5% have a diploma or an equivalent. So a diploma or GED.
Right.
19.5% have some college. So they've been maybe Trident Tech or gone off to a 4-year university, not finished, and come back home. We have 5.9% who have an associate's degree. And then we have 15.1% who have a bachelor's degree. And so I know that I'm one of the people that's post-bachelor's, and so that's even a smaller shade that's not even given the number. I need to crunch all these out to see what sliver is left there.
Yes, ma'am. And I want to get back to you on that in a second. But you talked earlier, obviously, about the South End and North Charleston, and I realized what you were saying about most of these houses being demolished and some of these houses being sold. Do you currently know how many houses have been demolished versus how many homes have actually been sold?
In those communities, I think what's happening, Quintin, is they're being sold in the dilapidated state and then being demolished. So I'm not saying that the city is coming in and tearing them down, anything like that. They're not being condemned, but they're in states of disrepair where most people would not want to live in them. So that's taken the value down for the person who wants to buy it. And then they turn around and demolish it because it's now their property. They can do that. And they do a fresh rebuild. And homes like in Union Heights are being sold right now in Rosemont area for a little over $200,000. I am aware of a project that's right at the cusp right outside of Akabee, where they are building affordable townhouses starting around 149. And the base of it is going to be for people who are from the neck area. They're going to get a first preference in moving into those homes, purchasing those homes and moving into them.
What is it, Judge? Is it affordable housing that you need? Is it attainable housing, or is it workforce housing that you need in House District 109?
Probably a little bit of it all. And I'm going to write that down to make sure I can address all of them. Affordable,
attainable, and workforce housing.
And when you say workforce housing, are you talking about transitional spaces for people who are coming into work?
Yes, ma'am. That as well. You have a lot of people in the city of Charleston that can't afford to live here. I'm on the peninsula now, and they can't live in North Charleston. Is that something viable for your area right now?
That those folks can move in?
Yes, ma'am.
I think it ties in to the affordability and the attainability. So the attainability, because I'm gonna take all three of these and put them in a progressive order.
Sure.
The attainability factor comes in having some core competencies to be able to do that. One, to have a job that you've been on probably longer than 6 months, and to start having some level of savings. So once people start working, the first 6 months is usually kind of rocky and just getting your feet in, and especially if you've now had to move and reestablish yourself, you gotta get level. Then the next 6 months of learning the job, maybe putting in more time, you're catching up on everything that's behind from having the move. Now, the next year, you're probably in a space where you can start saving. So it's probably a good 2 years before someone has the foundation for attaining it. So the attainability factor is then coming in.
Yes, ma'am.
Then the affordability. What does that look like? When you think about a mortgage, the traditional mortgage is based over 30 years. I don't think a lot of people understand that. So when you see that this is $220,000 and you're going, wait a minute, I make $20 an hour. I don't know that I can afford that. I'm making $800 a week. That means I'm at $42,000 a year. I can't afford that. They really can. The key is the attainability, getting the down payment and getting situated to have that initial set of funding to get in. Because when you spread it out over the course of a 30-year mortgage, it is going to be cheaper for them to buy than it is to rent. But it's getting to the table. I think the hard part for people is getting to the table. And if you're paying $1,200 a month in rent right now, and there's no program that's helping you to see that down payment, that makes it a little more difficult in the attainment part. Okay. Then you got your workforce kind of housing. And I think what you're talking about, Quintin, if I'm getting you correctly, you're talking about the people who may make wages at some of the lower ends, what we would call our true labor force. Those are folks that I've always said, I think that ties back into, again, some of our problems. If my mom is doing the housekeeping and making maybe nowadays $10, $11 an hour, in a hotel room that's rented out for $238 a night, I mean, and you tell her to clean the room in 30 minutes. I mean, when you run the numbers, by no means is she on the best end of this. So she can't even afford to rent a room in the hotel where she's working. So for someone like that, for their wage factor, that is truly more workforce. If you've got two parents in a workforce situation like that, Quintin, even getting the affordable housing is a struggle.
Wow.
It's a real struggle.
And unfortunately, Zoom is actually giving me less than a minute, but I hope to get you back in the spring.
Okay.
When you get closer to the primary, that is, so we can talk more about this in depth. Because
Well,
I
Quintin,
yes, ma'am.
this primary is January 30th. We don't even have the spring. This is a special election.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Well, I'll get you back before then.
Yeah, so if we have to join on my Zoom, which is unlimited, we can do that as well.
Okay. Well, for now, the Honorable Tiffany Spann-Wilder, Esquire, thank you for your time. And again, welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you, Quintin. Glad to be here.
Likewise.